Thank you very much, Diana. I would now like to open the floor for any questions or any kind of points that anyone would like to make about what you've been hearing so far, about Shades Noir or anything else.
Really? Okay, well, I've got a question. This is the lecturer in me. Well, I'd like to pose a question to the audience. How many people here attended one event last phase? Raise your hand. Keep your hand up if you attended 2 events. 3 events? Okay, so we have some really dedicated people here today. Now, those dedicated people, is there nothing you wish to ask? Tilly.
I'd like to applaud you, Aisha, for founding Shades Noir and bringing to the attention of the masses issues around race equality and arts education. My question to you is, what would you like most next from an institution such as UAO in terms of support we could offer you to further this campaign?
I think there's a few things that are in the process of happening. One is around revalidation of courses and how Shades Noir could support those actions to happen, to make sure that the curriculum and the pedagogies are supporting inclusive practice. Now, we're talking about it, but I'd like to see it actually happen. I think for me at this stage that is the next steps. Do you want to answer? No?
There's all questions back here.
Okay. I'll come back.
So there's a question in terms of when you were saying that it's kind of all down to us to make the change happen. What can I, as a student and fellow practitioner, do to help bring around racial equality?
It's a good question. I think from a personal perspective, I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but from a personal perspective, I would encourage you, one, to engage with all of the diversity in your course. So I have no doubt that your course cohort, the student cohort, is not exclusive, that there is a variety of different people on your course. And I would encourage you to ask those people questions for you to benefit from learning. I mean, questions like, what inspires you? In that video, we asked students what inspired them. And actually, everybody gave really, to a certain extent, expecting answers. They were names that we all know. But we have students from all over the world here. When I speak to my student body, and I ask them to really think about your schooling, your college, and how you ended up here, and share with us more than what you think I want to hear, then it becomes something a lot different and very interesting. And I'm learning too. The website, which is a resource list, I can't claim has all of the resources. It does not, which is why I need people like yourself on your courses to encourage people to engage with it and share. It's an open portal. You can add resources to this. You can add yourselves, as practitioners to the lists. I would just encourage you to share more and ask people to share more.
Say something as well. I think also, and I think this comes back to Tilly's question, the first question as well. I think keep challenging us. Keep challenging the university. Student voice, students' participation, student engagement. Keep challenging us. Keep challenging the staff that we work with. The student charter that was written between students and the university says that students are involved in students and staff are involved in the co-production of education at UAL. That's the main key thing, and that means that actually you're learning. The experience that you have here is a partnership between you and academic staff and teachers and lecturers that you work with. So I think keep keep challenging us, keep challenging our Russian teachers, say where you think that there isn't enough representation, there isn't enough diversity, there isn't enough inclusion in your curriculum, in what you're experiencing. I think when we go back to Tilly's question about what next, I mean, I think, I would like to think, I guess I would say this, wouldn't I, but I would like to think there is a much greater level of awareness of issues of race and ethnicity in the university than there was 2 years ago. And Chase Noir has been a key part of that, and other activities that yourself, Tilly's been involved with, have been a key part of that. So we have great awareness, we have great policies, we have great documents, we have great text, we use all the right language. We've got to make some things happen now, and in particular we've got to make some things happen in the curriculum, and at a school level, at a college level, at a curriculum level. Central St Martin's held an event a couple of weeks ago with the head of college and the Pro-Vice Chancellor on, which was exploring all of these issues, and I think that's a great step forward, and other colleges have started to do similar things. But to go back to Philip's question, I think, keep challenging us, keep asking us difficult questions. I see, student union colleagues sitting behind you asking difficult questions all the time, and that's great, and I want them to carry on doing that. But I think, ask your staff difficult questions.
Terry, and then.
Okay, I just want to share something really about a student that I've been working with. He's coming to a very successful student who is the main student, who is either going to get first or a 2-1, and is going on, has been accepted onto an MA course in Collision Fashion. And she gave me a book to read, which I hadn't read before, which was called Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. Quite interesting. It's about women and about lean in, and it's all about you and you've got to do it. And it's going back to your question really, and I think that it's also about Aisha's response to it. In some respect, we do have a responsibility at an individual level, and it is one conversation at a time. I agree with that. And it's a very inspirational book, but I would also say that it is about the institution, and it's about the institutional practices. So we need to be looking at both of those things. So yeah, lean in. That's talking about a feminist perspective, or a perspective of women not feeling that they are, that they're at the table. I understand that, and she's using it. She's now involved in the lean in circle. She's going to go far, but I think as I need to have that conversation with her, it's also about what we do at an institutional level. How do we move things forward, and where's the fight? So I do think it is actually, and that's why I think Shades of Noir is a really useful thing. It's actually essential because it's saying this is a resource that can be used. So I suppose I'd ask you, Aisha, so what are the challenges, if we're talking about the institutional thing, and Mark is saying, challenge us, what are the challenges in the sense of how we move forward on this? Because it's been going on for such a long time, we need to be looking at institutional things as well as individual people making a difference.
I think I would say the biggest challenge currently is making the whole process collaborative. It seems that everybody has good intention, there is loads of support and goodwill. There's all sorts of organisations such as Afro Noir, a magazine, there's I can't even think now. There's so many organisations that we could be embracing to help us move forward, and I don't think on a local level we're not really doing that, and in the national level we're not really doing that enough. I think a lot of decisions are being made that aren't really including the people that they're hoping to affect, which I think is a problem. I think it's a huge problem, which is one of the reasons why Shades of Noir was actually born out of the student voice. And I think we have to use our student voice and our staff voice to really aid development, because that's the only way we will all move forward, I think. But I think that's the hardest one, because everybody is really well intentioned. I think art and design in particular, we are liberal, and we are open-minded, but what that means in higher education, I think, could be unpacked. Okay, and then
I just I think we're also we're deeply conservative, and I think sometimes we like to think we're liberal and progressive and radical, and actually we're sometimes deeply conservative in this university and in our sector. And I think that's a big challenge. I think the other challenge is how do you create the space and the time for academic colleagues to be able to engage fully with these issues, given all of the other pressures that they are under. So how can people like me be more supportive to academic colleagues to address these issues, and how can we create space and time to do that? I think the other one is that there aren't that many quick wins around this agenda. I keep saying this is a 10-year project, and that's deeply depressing, but I think it's realistic. Some of the data that we're looking at around our staff profile, some of the data that we're looking at around the attainment gap between black and white students is so significant that it's not going to change quickly. And so I think that's the other thing is understanding that those of us who are still here in 10 years' time will hopefully finally start to see some really significant change when we're looking at data and outcomes.
Is there a real disconnect between management and everyone else and students? Doesn't that suit management? And doesn't the whole idea of 10 years suit everyone, because nothing needs to be done really? I mean, I studied many years ago. Not much has really changed, but people are very good at using words to appear that change is happening. So I'm posing that as a wider question, because ultimately these changes will mean that people will lose their jobs. And isn't it the role of people who are working to protect what's theirs? You raised some really interesting points. It's always a danger that this is one of the particular sets of boxes that public institutions have to tick, and therefore something like this. I really believe that at this university there are a significant number of people, including in senior management roles, that are really committed to this agenda and really committed to trying to change things. But we know, the proof of the pudding will be in the eating. All I can say is that in terms of the work that we've done to have greater participation at this university, our black students and my working class students has had positive results. There are more black students at this university than there ever have been, and more working class students at this university than there ever have been before. So change does happen, but I have to look at 5 years of data to see that sort of change. I understand the points that you're making.
Can I just add something about change? Because as an educator, as I mentioned earlier, for 17 years, if I was just regurgitating and working to a formula that was already pre-designed or preset, I would be incredibly bored by what I do, and I'm not. I'm incredibly challenged by what I do. I am incredibly excited by what I do, and I project that onto my students, and they give it back to me, and they take it into industry. And the thing about change is as we're discussing now, and inclusivity and diversity, is that I need to understand my students' needs, and they are diverse, and they are international. So in terms of where they come from and the role that culturally, politically, that might play in terms of their development creatively, it's my business to understand that. And it doesn't take much, it really doesn't take much. And in terms of what I then, when I understand that, can bring into the curriculum, it might be something very small. It might be an introduction of various or diverse industry feedback or visits, or we're talking about small things that have an enormous impact, in my experience, on the student experience. So I guess what I want to say is change doesn't have to be something that is kind of frowned upon, worked upon, takes ages to do. Change can be something that is immediate and that is small, that is impactful.
I'm an alumni from St Martin's. I studied there for a period of 4 years. And you talk about the need for there to be more black females, men from an ethnic background, kind of teaching at higher education level. And my question to you is, what do you think needs to be implemented to kind of encourage students and people that have studied at institutions such as St Martin's and LCF to kind of be in positions of power where you can make a difference, whether that be lecturers or head of departments? What is being done and what is being implemented to help alumni or graduates or students know that they can reach that potential, that they have that support? Because I studied at St Martin's and I've been through the process. I was there for 5 years throughout foundation. I know what the teaching process was like. How are you helping? What methods are you going to put in place to support the curriculum and support students within that creative environment from different backgrounds?
We just recently launched a program called En Route. It's run by Tilly Andrew, in a way Tilly's head of the diversity team here at the university. Tilly's coordinating that. And that has a number of aspects to it. That's both about encouraging progression of black staff who are already working at university, but there's another aspect of it which we're just starting to work up, which is how do we get black creatives to think about teaching if they're not involved in teaching or haven't thought about it before, and how do we create routes into the university for creative practitioners, black creative practitioners in the creative industries. How do we support people around training, and how do we ensure that there are fair recruitment processes? How do we move away from recruiting hourly paid staff by people recruiting other people that they know, who happen to often be quite like them? So there's a range of things. Again, that's a long-term piece of work, but that's something that we're very, very engaged with. For me, there has to be a connection between the very low numbers of black staff that we have and the gap that we have in degree classification between black students and white students. So I think those things have to be connected. And actually they're going in the wrong direction. So the number of black students that we have is going up, and actually over the last 2 years the number of black academic staff that we have has gone down. So we've got a bad problem that's getting worse. Tilly, I don't know if you want to add one or two words to that.
Just a question back to you. In some ways you are a creative practitioner now.
Yeah.
What is it that what would it take to attract people who are currently creative practitioners to consider a career in higher education? How would that compare with white lives industry? What would it that be most rewarding and attractive for you to be into teaching others?
I think there needs to be more support, overall. I think having, obviously what Ash is saying, having more of a support network. I think Shades Noir was just starting as I was about to finish my degree at St Martin's, I graduated like 2 years ago. I think more support, to kind of, more support.
So the conversation will go on afterwards.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
Only because I think that we need to be explicit, and I don't think we're explicit about the recruitment process. I don't think we're explicit about how you become an AL, an associate lecturer. I don't think we're explicit about the requirements for you to progress from an hourly paid lecturer to a dean to a head of a college. But that is not explicit. And I would encourage powers that be at any of the higher education institutions that I hear today to really consider that. You know, how explicit are we about that information, and who has access to that information?
I don't think it's explicit because there isn't any one clear career trajectory, but I think it relies heavily on networks. And if this kind of network that Shays Kumar has established can keep its way into the existing established networks in this institution, go a long way to giving people that tool to consider what they've got might be. That's a challenge.
Another question. Okay. One.
Sorry to interrupt.